12 years of my life erased with a shrug. I wanted to scream, to claw at him, to demand how he could steal more than a decade and reduce it to nothing. Instead, I whispered the only question that mattered: why? His smirk widened. Because I didn't want to be tied down. I was saving marriage for someone I actually loved. You were just a good deal. A homemaker who didn't ask questions. And if you even think about running your mouth to my parents, remember, your dad's business only thrives because of my hospital. I can make that contract disappear with a single phone call. There he was, the man I had shared a bed with. Stripped of every mask. Not a husband. Not even a partner. Just a stranger who had used me like cheap wallpaper until he found something shinier. You're threatening me? I asked, my voice low but steady. He laughed, a hollow sound that filled the kitchen like smoke. It's not a threat. It's reality. Pack up and go. Susan, nothing's in your name. You have no job. No money of your own. Nothing without me. Be grateful I let you live this long on my dime. He turned, already reaching for his phone. Already moving on as if I had never existed. But as the door clicked shut behind him, something inside me shifted. The tears on my cheeks dried into salt. The air in my lungs steadied. For 12 years, I had shrunk myself to keep his world shining. No more. He thought I was naive. Broken. Dependent. He thought wrong. Because for months, long before his confession, I had felt the cracks in the picture-perfect frame. The late nights. The emergency calls, the hotel receipts that didn't add up. My instincts had been screaming. And I had already taken steps. Quiet steps. Ones Nathan never noticed. I rose from the chair, wiped my face with the back of my hand, and walked to the drawer where I kept the unpaid bills and scattered papers of domestic life. Beneath them lay a sealed manila envelope. Heavier than it looked. My fingers brushed its edge. And for the first time in hours, I felt something close to control. As I slid the envelope free, the cicadas outside seemed to pause. As if even they knew something had shifted. I whispered into the still kitchen air, my voice steady now. You're the pitiful one, Nathan. You just don't know it yet. The manila envelope sat on the kitchen counter like a silent witness. Its edges smudged from the many times I had touched it without opening. Tonight, though, it wasn't just paper. It was power. Weeks earlier, suspicion had driven me to hire someone who specialized in uncovering truths most people didn't want to face. His name was Tom Reynolds, a private investigator whose trench coat smelled faintly of old cigarettes and rain. Even when the weather was dry, Tom had a table with the kind of gravity usually reserved for court summonses or last rites. You'll want to look at this alone, he'd said, his voice low, gravelly, but I'll give you the headlines. Nathan's been seeing a nurse named Lauren, hotels, restaurants, the whole cliché. And there's more. I overheard him bragging about never filing your marriage license. Said it means he can walk away clean. No alimony, no division of assets, just gone. At the time, I had stared at the envelope, unable to bring myself to break the seal. Now, in the wake of Nathan's confession, I tore it open. Photos spilled out, grainy but damning. Nathan in his suit, his hand resting intimately on a woman's back as they walked into a midtown hotel. Another shot of them laughing over dinner. His face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. There was even a receipt tucked inside, time-stamped at nearly midnight on a Tuesday. The date burned into my memory because that was the night Nathan had told me he was stuck at the hospital with a critical patient. The bile rose in my throat. But beneath it all was something sharper. Clarity. Tom had warned me not to cling to fantasies. Susan, listen to me, he had said, leaning across the diner table until his eyes met mine. Georgia doesn't recognize common-law marriages anymore, not since the late 90s. Don't let anyone fill your head with that false hope. If he really never filed, you're standing on shaky legal ground. But shaky isn't hopeless. There are other angles. Unjust to him in it. The next morning, Tom called. His voice was gruff as ever. But there was an urgency in it. Susan, we need to meet. I've got more. At the same diner, he slid another piece of evidence across the table, an audio recording. Nathan's voice, unmistakable, smooth and arrogant. She's clueless. Lauren, I never filed the paperwork. Which means I'm free. No courts. No alimony. Nothing. She can cry all she wants. But she's got no claim. She should be grateful I kept her around this long. Lauren's laughter followed, high and breathless. You're terrible. No, Nathan replied. I'm smart. And when the time comes. My parents don't need to know. They think Susan's the perfect little housewife. Let them keep thinking that. I felt my chest tighten. My pulse hammering in my ears. Proof. Not just of his affair. But of his intent. Proof that he had lied. Manipulated. And trapped me in a performance for over a decade. Tom leaned back, crossing his arms. This isn't just about money anymore. This is about reputation. You've got him on record bragging about fraud and deception. A lawyer could tear him apart with this. And trust me, the hospital board? They'll crucify him if they think he abused his power with a nurse. HR doesn't play around with that kind of scandal. For the first time in days, I allowed myself a bitter smile. Nathan had always thought of himself as untouchable. The golden boy who could charm anyone. Deceive everyone. But gold tarnishes. And when it does, the shine doesn't come back. As I left the diner, the August sun beat down on me. Hot and heavy. But I didn't shrink from it. I walked to my car with the envelope under my arm. Each step steadier than the last. Nathan thought he had stripped me of everything. Marriage. Security. Even dignity. What he didn't realize was that he had given me something far more dangerous than love or loyalty. He had given me motive. That night, I laid the photos and recordings across my kitchen table. The evidence spread like cards in a hand of poker. My phone buzzed with a new message. It was Tom. She'll see you tomorrow. Sarah Bennett. Family law. She's tough. And she hates arrogant men. I looked at the message until the words blurred. Tomorrow, I would sit across from a lawyer who could turn my scattered pain into a plan. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The law office downtown looked like something pulled straight from a legal drama, sleek glass walls. Polished floors that reflected the Atlanta skyline. And a reception desk manned by a young assistant who barely glanced up from her computer before pointing me toward a corner office. My palms were clammy as I clutched the envelope against my chest. The photos and recordings inside pulsing like where I played the role of Dr. Hayes' perfect wife. Each photo that once felt like a memory now became a piece of evidence. I stacked bank statements showing joint accounts, Christmas cards addressed to Dr. and Mrs. Hayes, and utility bills bearing both our names. Piece by piece, I rebuilt the life Nathan had tried to erase. And somewhere between the stacks of paper and the glow of my laptop, I found something else. Myself. It started small. I logged back into the online graphic design courses I'd been taking in secret. I finished assignments I'd left half done. Uploaded a fresh portfolio to a freelance platform. And within days an email pinged into my inbox. A marketing firm needed a logo. The pay was modest. But it was mine. Not Nathan's. Not a handout. Mine. I worked late into the night. The hum of the laptop filling the silence that Nathan's absence had left behind. Every click of the mouse felt like reclaiming a piece of the woman I'd once dreamed of becoming. By the time dawn broke over Atlanta, boxes of evidence surrounded me. And a freshly polished logo gleamed on my screen. For the first time in years, I felt like Susan Jones again, not the ghost of Dr. Hayes' wife. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Tomorrow. Bring your parents. And Nathan's. It's time they hear the truth. I stared at the message. My breath catching in my throat. Tomorrow. The masks would come off. Tomorrow. The families who thought they were celebrating 12 years of marriage would learn it was nothing but smoke. And Nathan, golden boy, heart surgeon, liar, would finally be exposed. The living room that had once been a stage for cocktail parties and polished dinner gatherings was now a battlefield. The air was thick. Not with perfume and champagne, but with dread and unspoken fury. I had asked everyone to come, my parents, Nathan's parents, and Nathan himself. I wanted the truth to bleed into the open, where no amount of charm or posturing could patch it shut again. Nathan arrived last, as usual, breezing in with the kind of swagger that had always fooled strangers but never fooled me. He wore his doctor's confidence like armor. But I saw the flicker of unease in his eyes when he spotted the stack of documents on the coffee table and Sarah Bennett sitting calmly in an armchair. A thin smile on her lips. My father sat rigid on one end of the couch. His jaw set so tight I could see the muscle twitch. My mother twisted a handkerchief in her lap, eyes red with unshed tears. Across from them, Nathan's parents looked equally grim, his father, the stern surgeon, with arms crossed like he was preparing to scold a resident, his mother, the Southern belle with pearls at her throat, visibly shaken but holding her composure. Wired, lips too close, laughter spilling like champagne at hotel bars. Then came the receipts, then the recording. His voice filled the room, bragging about never filing our marriage license, about being free, about me being clueless. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. His father broke it first. Is this true, Nathan? His voice was low, controlled, but edged with steel. Nathan shifted on his feet, color rising in his face. Yes. I never filed the paperwork. I didn't want to be tied down. His mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. For 12 years you let her believe, you were married? Nathan shrugged, trying for nonchalance but failing. It wasn't real, not legally. Susan knew this was never about love. My father shot to his feet, face red, voice booming like thunder. You used my daughter. You paraded her around like a prop. Threatened my business when it suited you. And now you stand there and admit it was all a lie? Nathan raised his hands defensively. I didn't force her. She got a nice life out of it. A roof, money, no job to worry about. She should be thanking me. That was when Sarah stood, her calm voice slicing through the chaos. Actually, Nathan, what she got was 12 years of unpaid labor, coerced compliance, and financial dependency. And what you got was unjust enrichment, fraud, and a violation of your hospital's code of ethics. Nathan's head whipped. My heart skipped. Hospital HR preparing investigation. Rumors spreading fast. Lauren under pressure. Nathan's name already whispered in board meetings. I lifted my eyes back to Nathan. His smugness was gone now, replaced by something raw and frightened. You built your life on lies, I said softly, but everyone could hear. And now, Nathan, they're collapsing all around you. The cicadas outside screamed louder than ever, as if punctuating my words. Hospitals are temples of order, of white coats and clipped voices, of hallways polished to a shine so bright you could mistake it for purity. But that week, the temple of Nathan Hayes began to crack. Gossip spread faster than infection, whispers traded in stairwells, glances exchanged at the nurse's station, eyes lingering too long when he walked by. What began as murmurs about an affair became a roar about deception, fraud, and a marriage that was never real. Tom's text confirmed what I already suspected. HR on it. Internal investigation. Privileges under review. The fallout didn't wait. On a Tuesday morning, while I was working at my laptop, designing a logo for a small coffee chain downtown, Tom called me. His voice carried the kind of grim amusement that only comes when a plan starts to bear fruit. Susan, you're going to want to hear this. Hayes and his nurse had it out in the hospital cafeteria. Right there, in front of God and everybody. She was crying, waving papers in his face. Nurses, doctors, even patients saw it. HR's got no choice now. I pictured it instantly. Nathan in his starched white coat, cornered, his polished image unraveling in front of the very people who once bowed to his brilliance. Lauren's voice raised, her mascara streaking, the affair no longer a private indulgence but a public spectacle. Later that afternoon, Sarah forwarded me a copy of an internal memo leaked by one of Tom's sources. Effective immediately. It read, Dr. Nathan Hayes' elective surgeries are suspended pending investigation into conduct unbecoming of hospital staff. The language was careful, bureaucratic, but the meaning was clear. His privilege to cut, his lifeblood as a surgeon, had been frozen. I sat back in my chair, my fingers trembling, not from fear but from the sheer surge of satisfaction. For 12 years I had ironed his shirts so he could walk into that hospital flawless. Now his flaws were painted across its walls in neon. Nathan, of course, wasn't going down quietly. That evening, My phone lit up with his name. Against my better judgment, I answered. You think this is funny? His voice was raw, a far cry from his usual smooth control. You think you can ruin me? I kept my tone calm, almost serene. You ruined yourself, Nathan. I just stopped covering for you. He cursed, a string of words I hadn't heard from his mouth in years. You're pathetic. You were nothing before me. And you'll be nothing after me. I let the silence stretch. Then said, funny, I just landed another design client. And last I checked, you're the one suspended. The line went quiet, and then he hung up. Sarah wasted no time, with HR's gears grinding against him. She filed the civil claim. You think you can take it all because you played housewife? But the tide had shifted. For once, his words didn't pierce me. They bounced off the armor I had been building piece by piece. Meanwhile, Sarah took a step further. She sent a demand letter not just to Nathan, but to Lauren as well. The wording was precise, clinical, devastating. Lauren had knowingly participated in a relationship that caused financial harm and reputational damage. She could either face the possibility of civil liability or negotiate a quiet settlement. Within days, Lauren cracked. She quit the hospital, unable to endure the stares, the whispers, the calls for her to resign. Sarah confirmed what I suspected. Lauren had reached out through her lawyer. Desperate to settle, to make the storm end. Nathan's golden fortress had never seemed smaller. And yet, even in his crumbling, he tried to cling to control. One night, he showed up at the house unannounced. I was packing boxes in the living room, sorting memories into piles. What was mine? What was trash? What I never wanted to see again? He stood in the doorway, shoulders slumped, his arrogance dented but not destroyed. This doesn't have to go public, he said, his voice softer, almost pleading. We can settle this quietly. Just walk away. I met his gaze, steady now. No, Nathan, I played quiet for 12 years. This time, I want the world to hear the truth. The cicadas outside buzzed louder than ever, as if they were cheering me on. Later that night, Tom sent me a final message. Monday, 8 a.m. Hayes has to appear before the Hospital Privileges Committee. He's cornered. I stared at the glowing screen, a smile tugging at my lips. The man who once said I was nothing without him was about to walk into a room where every mask he wore would be stripped away. And this time, I wouldn't be the one left exposed. Monday morning in Atlanta broke heavy and humid. The kind of heat that clung to your skin before you even left the house. I sat at my new desk in the Midtown apartment I had just signed the lease for. A bright one-bedroom with a tiny balcony that overlooked a row of coffee shops and art galleries. Boxes still sat unopened in the corner, but the sun streamed through the wide windows, glinting off the stack of legal documents Sarah had prepared. The apartment smelled of fresh paint and possibility. It smelled like freedom. Nathan, on the other hand, was walking into hell. At 8 o'clock sharp, he appeared before the Hospital Privileges Committee. Tom had a contact inside HR who described it to me later in vivid detail. Nathan sitting in a stiff-backed chair, stripped of his surgical coat, sweat beading at his temples as administrators asked questions that sliced sharper than any scalpel. Did my designs in shop windows, my bank account filling with my own work. The cicadas outside my balcony sang their endless chorus, just like the night he'd first shattered me. But now, their hum no longer sounded like despair. It sounded like triumph. Nathan had lost everything that propped him up. I had lost him, and in the space he left behind, I had finally found myself. Atlanta in autumn has a way of softening the world. The heavy heat gives way to crisp mornings. Leaves paint the sidewalks in reds and golds. And even the air feels lighter, as though it's learned to breathe again. By then, months had passed since the settlement. The ink on Nathan's signature had dried. The Buckhead house was up for sale. And my Midtown apartment had become not just a temporary refuge but a home with a heartbeat of its own. Work kept me alive in ways I hadn't expected. My freelance design business had grown into something real. The bakery that hired me for their logo had introduced me to a coffee chain. That coffee chain recommended me to a boutique hotel. My laptop became both my sword and shield. Every completed project another reminder that my worth had never depended on being Dr. Hayes' wife. I was Susan Jones again. With my own name, my own clients, my own future. It was at one of those client meetings, in a small design workshop downtown, that I met David. He was an architect, broad-shouldered but gentle-eyed, with a laugh that carried warmth even in the sterile meeting room. We bonded over fonts and floor plans, of all things. But what struck me most was that he listened, not like Nathan had, with impatience simmering beneath the surface, but with a genuine curiosity that made me feel seen. Our coffee meetings turned into dinners, and dinners turned into late-night walks along the Beltline, the city lights glinting off the glass towers. One evening, he asked about my past. I told him everything, Nathan. The lies, the 12 years of nothingness masquerading as marriage. I expected pity. Instead, he looked at me with admiration. You're a fighter, Susan, he said softly, his hand brushing mine. Most people would have folded. You rebuilt. His words stayed with me, echoing louder than Nathan's ever did. When David asked me to marry him, it wasn't in a grand gesture at a gala or under a shower of champagne. It was quiet, in my apartment, with takeout containers on the table and my sketchbook still open beside us. He pulled out a ring and said, "Let's do this right. No secrets, no missing paperwork, just us." The next morning, we walked into Fulton County Courthouse together. The fluorescent lights flickered, the clerk stamped papers with bureaucratic boredom. But my heart soared. We stood side by side, signing the form. Lavish, just fairy lights strung through oak branches, barbecue smoking in the air, and laughter echoing across the lawn. My father pulled me aside, his eyes misty. You're happy, aren't you? I nodded, hugging him tight, happier than ever. Dad, for the first time in a long time. I believed it, but Nathan wasn't finished. He never was. One evening, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, his voice slithered through the line. Bitter and tired. Heard you got remarried, he said. Guess you move on fast. I stood on my balcony, the Atlanta skyline glittering in the distance, the cicadas humming their eternal song. Yeah, Nathan, I did. To a man who doesn't lie about marriage licenses. He scoffed, the sound hollow. Bet you didn't even register it. You're still that naive. I smiled, unshaken. We did it together, step by step. No secrets, no lies. And Nathan, I actually feel sorry for you. You'll never know what happiness feels like if all you do is hurt people. Before he could respond, I hung up. I leaned against the railing, the city stretching wide and alive beneath me. My life wasn't perfect. Freelance deadlines still kept me up too late. Some nights old memories still woke me with a start, but every step I took now was mine. Every scar was proof of survival. Every choice a new beginning. Inside, David was sketching a new project, his pencil moving fast across the side. But just as I was about to end the recording, my email pinged with a new message. The subject line was blank, the sender anonymous. I clicked it open. He's not done yet. My heart stilled. The cicadas outside droned louder, like a warning.